the state he pulled up beside you and put a shotgun out the window?
You know what? I can't remember. They probably did.
Because I remember you saying that.
Remember they told me to pull over. They kept telling me to pull off the side of the road.
I remember you saying once, many years ago, that he pulled up alongside you, had this, and you shouted, "Pull over! I'm going to blow your head off!" And you swerved at him, and then you peeled off as he swerved and went down to Belmont.
This is probably why they were mad at me when they eventually got me.
Right, they were ticked off.
But I'm hiding this dumpster, and I'm thinking about what Dick Flanagan said: jails, death, and mental institutions, people, places, and things.
Right.
It's all the AA things.
It's all coming back at you.
It's all going through my head, and I'm drunk. I'm half out of it, and I started to pray. Mm-hmm. And I said, God, get me out of this one, and I'll never drink again, and I'll go back to AA. Right. Now, that's the drunkard's prayer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, foxhole prayer.
Yeah, the foxhole prayer. Get me out of this one, and the lid opened. Yeah. I was extracted from the dumpster.
They grabbed you, pulled you out.
And the first thing the guy says, I said, what are you doing? They said, well, you stole that car over there. I said, no, I didn't. I said, I was visiting my girlfriend. I had nowhere to sleep, and I was sleeping in this dumpster. I mean, this is how insane I was at the time, right? Cops going, okay, sure, buddy, let's go. So after some choice words about his mother and whoever else and his family.
Tune him up.
Yeah, he gets me in the cop car, and we ended up the Belmont Avenue State Police Barracks. Mm-hmm. And I'm chained to this chair, with the handcuffs in. Right. And I'm looking, and I'm sitting there, and I'm kind of semi coming out of it. And I'm sitting there, and I start to cry. Mm-hmm. And the cop says, well, late to cry, isn't it? And I said, yeah, I guess it is. I said, I think I'm losing my mind. I'm crazy. He said, why? I said, that car you have out there? He said, yeah. I said, I stole that 100 days ago, and I went to a rehab for stealing. I got drunk and stole it again. He says, yeah, something's wrong with you, kid. That was the last drink that I had. Mm-hmm. I ended up at the Youth Study Center where I used to go in Montgomery County. I'd been there many times, familiar with the facility. Mm-hmm. And
you didn't know it was going to be the last drink you ever had, though.
No, I didn't plan on it being the last drink I had. I just didn't know. Mm-hmm. I was just at a low point in my life at 17. I just hated myself. Mm-hmm. And I think like the second or third day there, usually like they wouldn't put me in with anybody because I was like the kind of guy that like instigated and would start fights all the time.
Okay.
So I'm in by myself in my own cell, and I decided I was going to hang myself.
Really?
So I got the sheet off the bed, and I tied it around this pipe that came through the ceiling for the heat radiator system. Mm-hmm. And I hung there for about 30 seconds. Just as I got speckly and I was ready to pass out, I step up on the windowsill and I untie the sheet, make my bed back up. And I decided that night I was going to kill myself. I was going to hang myself. I just couldn't take it anymore. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because I was institutionalized or anything. I was just tired. I couldn't see any way out of this thing.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it was a nightmare.
Right.
And that night, I remember laying there in my cell, and I'm staring up at the sheet, and the moon was coming through the window, and I'm looking and contemplating whether I was going to get up and hang myself. Right. Looking at the pipe, and next thing I know, all the cell block or whatever we're on lights up. All the lights come on, and they come to my cell, and they say, you got to move. I said, what do you mean I got to move? They said, well, there's two guys. We got to bed down for the night, and you're in a double cell. We're going to put you in a single down the hall.
Oh, yeah?
So they put them in my cell. I moved down to the single in the hall. There's no pipe or anything to tie my sheet to. So somebody bigger than me took care of the problem.
Yeah, right. Remove that from the equation.
Remove that from the equation. And then the next day I got some letters from people in AA.
Really?
Now, and I don't even know how these people knew where I was at.
Are these people from White Deer?
This is people from Williamsport. White Deer Run in Williamsport sent me these letters, told me to, they were praying for me to hang in there. They sent me How It Works, and I taped it to my cell wall, and I would read it every day. It was like reading the Gospels to me. Right. And I felt some kind of hope. Somebody cared about somebody like me, but I didn't know why they cared about me.
Right.
Like, what did they want from me? I thought, I failed their program.
Yeah, what's their motive?
What's their motive? I ended up going to court, and from court...
Did you go in front of the same judge as last time?
I don't know if it was the same judge, but I remember. Here's what I do remember. I remember looking at this judge. It was like the last. I pleaded guilty. I always lied. I always said I didn't steal that car. It wasn't me. I say I stole the car. And I told the guy. He said, "Well, what do you want us to do with you?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to get sober." He says, "What do you mean you want to get sober?" I said, "Well, I'm an alcoholic." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "I'd like to go back and get sober in Williamsport, where I lived." And the district attorney who was prosecuting said that I was criminally insane and that I should go to Camp Hill for 17 to 23 months and learn a lesson.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, that's what he was going to do to me. And
Camp Hill is a nasty place to go.
So he says, so I told the judge I'm an alcoholic. I said, if you send me there, I said, I'm going to become an animal. I said, I'll become part of the system. I said, I've been locked up and institutionalized, and I know what that's all about. I said, if you let me get sober, I'll be sober and you'll never see me again. And for some reason, he released me in the custody of the guy who was the cook at the rehab, a guy named Bob.
Really?
He released me to this guy, Bob.
This guy came down and got you?
My probation officer took me halfway up. We met, and he took me back to Williamsport.
Really?
From there. Now, I should have went to jail by all reasons. I mean, here's a guy.
Anybody else?
I probably would have sent the guy to jail. Still in the same car twice in 100 days. You know what I mean? I would have said, you're good luck, kid.
Yeah.
But one thing, he had all these books on his, it looked like 6 big phone books on top of his podium there where the judge was at.
Right.
And he said, do you know what these are? And I said, no. He said, these are all your intakes from the age of 13 to now that you've been in the court system.
It volumes on you.
Yeah. He said, let me read. We started reading all the times, like, do you have anything to say?
Right.
And he said, here's one problem, here's another. And he went through all the things what I said at the end. I'll never do it again. I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. He says, this is another one of those, I'm going to be a good boy now. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't know what to tell you. I said, that's up to you to figure that out.
Right.
And he did release me, though.
How about that?
And the guy who became my sponsor, Bob, his story is the first story in the NA textbook.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
And Bob was a good sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he would give me a lot of things to do, direction. I want you to do this when you look for a job. And if I didn't, next week he'd say, did you do this? And I'd say, well, not really. Or do I have to do this? And he'd say, well, you don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. He said, and if you don't do anything, he said, you can go back to jail.
Right.
Because he was actually my legal guardian and my sponsor.
How about that?
Because I wasn't 18 years old as of yet.
Right.
And that was the beginning of my sobriety. I went to meetings. I remember the first time I spoke, I was 89 days sober, and I spoke at Camp Hill Prison.
Is that right?
And I remember being so grateful when I left there thinking, I should have been an inmate and listened to somebody else's story.
Right.
You know what I mean? Instead of telling my story. So I really believe that God, I don't want to turn this into but a God thing, but God was really part of my life at that point. He was trying to show his presence of...
You can turn it into as much a God thing as you want.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But, I really realized that...
nobody's going to argue about that.
I realized that, from changing the cell...
I might.
To all those things...
The heathen. Go ahead.
That God was there. And he was trying to put himself before me, letting me know that he was taking care of me when I couldn't take care of myself.
Right, yeah.
That was 36 years ago, getting out of there, moving to Williamsport. In the last 36 years, my life has just been blessed by Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, meeting someone like you, when I was sober, I don't know, I was sober, 5 years?
Yeah, 5.5. Yeah.
5.5 years, I met you. I met a lot of great people in AA. When I was 2.5 years sober, I met my wife, Susan. We've been married almost 34 years.
How about that?
We have 2 great kids.
Yeah.
We were quite insane in early recovery. I got married at 20 years old, got sober at 17.
Yeah.
I remember being 10 years sober, I had apologized to my wife for being an absentee husband.
Really?
Because I ran to so many meetings with so many people. And
me.
And you. And,
I took
and
up all your time.
And
First 5 years, man, I was at your house every night.
Everything was about recovery and going to a meeting, and I don't know what we were doing.
Yeah. I remember many times we'd have projects for Saturday. We'd be outside putting a new set of brakes on your Hornet, or we'd be putting a clutch in my Monza or something. We were always doing something, and Sue would be like, "You guys want a sandwich?" You could tell she was annoyed.
And Sue would always say, "Your friend's here."
Yeah. Not Mark's here.
Most of my friends were scared to death of my wife.
I know. I love Sue. She's great. She's
a strong woman.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, it still is.
You know what? We had like an infertility problem for like 10 years of our marriage. Our daughter didn't come till we were almost 10 years married. And I always felt a woman in AA, Loretta, says, "You weren't delayed. You weren't denied. You were just delayed."
Yeah, I remember Loretta.
Yeah. And that's what she said. And I realized that. Thank God that I didn't have children the first 10 years of my recovery when we were married. I mean, because they would have been a wreck. Because I was a wreck.
Yeah.
For AA, they have 12 steps they work. I knew I was committed to the first step.
Right.
I knew the second step that I was insane. And that any kind of thinking was drawn around. When I thought of a drink, that was an insane thought. And I knew that a God that I understood today could restore me to some kind of right thinking through the second step. And turning my will over, I still fight with that today.
Yeah, I hear you.
I've surrendered my life to the God that I understand today.
Right.
But the will part, I constantly take my will back, but I've learned that when I do, the consequences I don't usually like.
Yeah.
So I try to conform my life to God's will, which is a daily effort on my part through AA.
Yeah, me too.
They have 12 steps. They have a 4-step that you write on your inventory. I'm in the midst of one of them now. I'm 36 years sober. My new sponsor said to me last week, he said, "Well, it only took 36 years, Pat." Now, I don't tell anybody, "Hey, it take 36 years to write on a 4-step an inventory." I'd like to personally make amends to you because you came to me with your 4-step. Your first couple of years, and you didn't do it through me. I don't know where you got the inkling to do a 4-step, but you did a 4-step, and you came to me and you showed it to me, and I said, "Oh, we don't have to worry about that." And I don't know if you remember that. I don't know if you do or don't.
Yeah.
But I owe you amends for that because I didn't follow up and follow through with that. I don't feel I've been the best sponsor AA person around. I feel a lot of times it was more fellowship in the beginning than the AA program. Today I'm on a program of action with the program part more than the fellowship part. I mean, there's 2 different parts of AA, I feel.
Yeah, right.
But you know what? That's what I needed to keep sober, was just going to meetings and being nuts or whatever was going on with me. Today, it's funny. I resent people to come to AA and think it's a dumping ground. When that's probably all I ever did was dump on AA with all my crazy insanity.
I know, me too.
I think one night me and Mark went to I think it was me and you. We went to a meeting and we got there 5 minutes late, so we didn't know what kind of meeting it was.
Right, over at Flower Town.
And we got a donut and we got our coffee and we sat down and we're looking.
It was like a midnight meeting.
Yeah, it was a midnight meeting. It was late at night and we're drinking our coffee and we're thinking it's a regular AA meeting.
Yeah.
And the people are going on. And I knew the chairman, the girl was chairing. And,
right.
And I knew that she was gay or a lesbian and it didn't bother me. And but as the meeting went on, the discussion was like crazy discussions about all these sex stuff. I'm thinking, well, man, these people
is this?
They're awful honest. So then me and Mark at coffee break are drinking our coffee or eating our donuts going, you know what these people are talking about?
Yeah.
So when they start the meeting back up, they said, oh yeah, we'd like to start the meeting back up and welcome everybody to the Dignity Gay meeting.
Yeah.
And me and Mark looked at each other, and I put my hand up right away because I knew half the people in the room.
Yeah, right.
And I said, my name's Pat, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm not gay.
Right.
I said, me and Mark just came to this meeting. Not that I got something against gay people, but I don't want anybody saying, yeah we seen Pat at that meeting.
Yeah, with his pigeon Mark.
Yeah, pigeon Mark. So, there's a lot of funny things that happen in AA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot.
That really clears up a lot.
I was one of the speakers in 1990 at the World Convention.
Really?
The 55th convention of
Is
AA.
that right?
Yeah.
In Akron?
Yeah, Sue was. This was in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, the World Convention?
Yeah, the
International
international
Not
convention.
Founders Day, but
the international convention.
Okay, yeah.
Sue and I went there with Catherine, our daughter, who was 2 at the time.
Huh.
Just a lot of rewards in AA. A lot of good people in AA that really gave strength. My sponsor, Ed, who was with me for 20-some years.
Ed, yeah. He was a great guy.
Just, your friend Bobby you talked about in the beginning. He committed suicide in 1982.
Yeah.
Shot himself through the head. He couldn't stop drinking.
Yeah.
Kept going back. My brother Tom, he and I got sober in 1977. He ended up in Williamsport. Right. Another God moment. I came home and I 12-stepped him in the Wyndham Hotel.
Right.
Him and his girlfriend were living there, and I'm sober 6 or 8 months. And I said, if you want to stop drinking, you can just come to Williamsport, and I'll help you.
Right.
I wanted to give it away. And one night I stepped out of the AA meeting on a Friday night, the YMCA, and as I stepped out to the corner, his car pulled up to the corner. He didn't know where I lived or where he was going to find me in Williamsport. He just knew I lived there.
Right.
And, I look at then as God directing him and me. We just met right on the corner as he was driving to town with him, his cat, and his girlfriend. And he got sober in 1977, but he's been in and out of AA for
his whole life.
35 years.
Yeah.
Right now, he is he's out of it. He lives in a group home, and not a group home, but the Lamb Foundation. It's like a place where they shelter you and they feed you every day.
Is that right? He's gone, huh?
He's gone. He doesn't know what tomorrow is or what he had for lunch or who's taking him. If he goes to an AA meeting, he doesn't know who's picking him up.
He was primarily a heroin addict, wasn't
he? He was a drinker at the end. He was a big-time alcoholic.
Yeah, no question.
Booze brought him to his knees.
Right. I always loved your brother.
Yeah, I love my brother too, but I just can't handle, what he brought on himself.
Yeah.
I met my father in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
When I was sober, I guess it was like October of '76. I was sober 3 or 4 or 5 months.
Right.
And I came down to visit my mom, and 2 of the guys I were with were from Lansdale, and they wanted to go to